Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parbrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Bhuvah Swaha, Tatsavitrvarenyam, Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi, Dhiyo Yo Nah Prachodayat, Asto Ma Tatgamya, Tamso Ma Jyotirgamya, Mrityurma Amritam Gamya. Om Sahna Vavatu, Sahna Bhunaktu, Saviryam Karvavahi, Tejasvinavadhitamastu, Ma Vidvishavahi. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti Om. So in these workshops, we are going a little deeper into the Yoga Sutras. So the book's name is Yog Darshan, written by Rishi Patanjali. And as the name says of the first chapter, Samadhi Pad, Rishi Patanjali says Samadhi is the goal for a yoga practitioner. Samadhi. But how do we reach that Samadhi? Before Samadhi, we have to meditate. Before meditation, we have to know how to concentrate. Before that, we got to know on what we need to concentrate upon. So that's what he has been talking about in this chapter. That's why he used those two terms, Abhyas and Vairagya. So in order to concentrate, we have to practice. How long? A long time, without interruption, with full faith, with full love. We got to keep on practicing. And what is this Vairagya? Vairagya is the detachment. Detach from all that which is unreal. When we learn how to detach from the unreal, only then we can attach with the real. And attaching with the real is through concentration. Okay, and this is a process. We keep on doing it. More we detach from the unreal, more we get attached to the real. The more we get attached to the real, more we detach from something which is useless, which is temporary, which gives us misery, sufferings. So this is what yoga is all about. He gave us many techniques of this Abhyas and Vairagya in the first chapter. He gave us different practices. So you can always go back to that and see which one I want to practice upon. What is really working for me? If this is not working, let me choose another way he told me to practice. But ultimately, when we learn how to practice that concentration, then we don't have to make any effort. We just reach the meditation. As long as we are concentrating, there are three factors. Effort is being made. The object of the concentration is there, and you are aware of yourself also. So three things. When that concentration has become meditation, no effort is needed. But you still know the difference between you and the object of your concentration. There are two left. But when you reach the ultimate samadhi, slowly and surely you lose awareness of who you are also. You have merged. Union, that's what's called yoga. That's what's called samadhi. First, we try to practice it few minutes in the morning, few minutes in the evening. Then when we see that we are getting the joy, that bliss, we want to do it more. Then it becomes our second nature. Even while dealing with this world, we can still be in samadhi. And that's what a yogi's life is. It's not just sitting in samadhi alone, but doing the duties while staying connected with that higher power. That's what we are looking for. So today we are going to start with the verse number 42. of chapter 1. So in these retreats, we are going through verse by verse, and each verse I tell you the meaning of these separate words also. Because the sutras are a very condensed form of writing, so you got to know that what these words really mean. What kind of a message you can draw from these verses. So number 43, he says, Tatra Shabd Arth Gyan Vikalp Sankirnaha Savitarkaha Samapati. Tatra means there. Shabad is the word. Arth means meaning. Gyan is the cognition. Vikalp. Vikalp is option. So Tatra is there, Shabd is word, Arth means meaning, Gyan is cognition, Vikalp is the option or alternative. Sankirnaha, limited or confined. Savitark, that means accompanied by a gross object. Sa means with, vitark is the some kind of a tangible thing, some kind of an object. Samapati. Samapati is the end result. Samapati word is used for samadhi also. That means the conclusion also. So Rishi Patanjali is saying when the mind focuses on an object in association with the word and its meaning, there arises savitark samapati. So that means a narrow field of concentration that contains that word, its meaning, and the object denoted. It's like a form of God. You know this is a divine object, and you have a name for it too. Whether it's a Lord Krishna or Lord Rama, or it's a cross or Om, you have a name for it. And you know the meaning of that also. It's a divine for you. And you are concentrating on it completely. When your mind does not go anywhere else, just totally you have absorbed into that form with the meaning. For a long enough time, that becomes savitark samapati. And you can see that in order to do this, it takes practice. It takes practice. So this is like a doing the meditation and going into the samadhi with the help of a form and the meaning of that form. So the mind and the object on which it is focused, they have become one. So only when the oneness is there, then it's a samapati. That's only, it's a samadhi. So in the previous sutra, Rishi Patanjali said, a clear, calm and tranquil mind has the ability to focus on any object for a prolonged time. So those were the prerequisites. All day long, we got to watch this mind of ours. Is it calm or not? Is it clean or not? It's very important to have a clean mind and a calm mind in order to focus that mind on the divine object. Tangible object is limited by space. The mind, when it is focused on such an object, draws a boundary of space around itself. So it's like whether it's a picture of your guru or God, or whether it's a form or any other symbol, you are just making your mind only in that particular space. So mind is existing in the confined space which is occupied by the object. But it's stable. It doesn't go anywhere else. It just stays there. And that's why it's called Savitarka Samadhi. So state of concentration is defined. There's a proper cognitive absorption in that particular object. Seekers from a number of religious backgrounds, they undertake this kind of a practice of concentration, meditation, in order to cognitively absorb into that. Some concentrate on the yantra or the mandala or image of God or the goddess, cross, picture of Krishna, Buddha, whatever, does not matter. Idea is to just fully absorb. And I'm sure your guru will say, do not keep on changing the object. Try to keep one object. It helps. So in order to meditate on such an object, you must first withdraw your mind from every direction. That's why giving yourself enough time to be situated in your meditation seat and then draw your mind towards that. The space occupied by that object. And mind is still aware of the word, meaning actual object denoted. Okay? So this is how it works. It's a very common practice for majority of the people. It's easier to do this way with the help of the object and the meaning behind. Meaning behind the object is very important, not the object alone. Okay, the meaning behind the object has to be divine. Then in the next one, he takes us towards Nivitarka Samadhi, because this was a Savitarka with the help of the form and the meaning. This is without that. It's like a higher level. Samadhis have stages. Okay, we got to start with something and then keep on moving up. So let's see what he says about Nirvitarka Samadhi. Samritihi parishuddho savrup shunyah iv arthmatra nirbhasaha nivitarkaha. Samriti parishuddho. Samriti means memory. Parishuddho. Thorough purification. It's like a cleansing completely. So thorough purification or transformation of memory. That's what it means. Samriti parishuddho. Savrup shunyaha. Devoid of one's own form. Iv means as if. Arth matar nirbhasa. Where the meaning alone is illumined. Nirvitarkaha. The distinction among the name and the form doesn't even exist. Nirvitarak. Okay, they no longer exist. So upon the complete transformation of memory, there arises Nirvitarak Samadhi. A mental state in which the meaning alone is illumined and which appears to be devoid of its own form. So in other words, there comes a time in meditation when the mind becomes so absorbed in the object that the distinction between you as the meditator, the object of the meditation, and the process of the meditation, they begin to blend. So at that point in meditation, the mind crosses the field of space occupied with that object. So word and its meaning lie in their homogeneous form. So it's just like only the meaning. This is a divine object. You have crossed that object. So that's how the divinity in one form and divinity in the other form is the same. You don't look at it that, no, my guru and your guru, my form of God and your form of a God. No, it's the same divinity. Essence is the same. So the actual discrete form of the object has already been left behind. So at this stage, when the mind naturally becomes concentrated on the meaning alone, nirvitarak samadhi arises. So in other words, you will see that mind is fully focused on the meaning. Mind is absorbed in the pure feeling of sacredness, which is definitely inherent of that meaning also, inherent of that object also, the idea also. So this level of stillness of mind is called nirvitarak samadhi. Okay, so practicing it on the form and the name and the idea, you just reach to that level. And you can see that more and more peace arises in your own heart, in your own mind. Otherwise, people are fighting over my favorite God and your favorite God. This mantra, that mantra, this place, that place. So this, a person who has attained this samadhi, all places are pure because God is everywhere. All people are essentially divine. Their nature is divine. That soul, that Atma is part of the same Paramatma, same God. So a person who says, no, my samadhi has reached to that level, will feel this. They don't even say it. You will see it in their actions actually. Now he says further, these are like a different stages of samadhis, okay? So we are going rather quickly, but it's okay. You just want to know the meaning. And then when you practice it, then it will become your own experience. This is not something which we only read and memorize. We need to experience these levels. This is our homework in this lifetime as a yoga student. So 44. Eteha ev savichara nirvichara cha suksham vishyaha vyakhyatah. Etya means accordingly. So that means in the same fashion, the way it was mentioned in the last two verses. So first it was a savitarak, then a nirvitarak. Now it's a savichar and a nirvichar. So etya, accordingly. Ev means only, savicharaha, accompanied by thinking or self-reflection. So vichar is a reflection. So there's no form. It's just a thinking only. Nirvichara, beyond thinking, beyond analysis. Cha means and, suksham vishya, the subtle object. Suksham is subtle, vishya is the object. Vyakhyataha has been described. So accordingly, Savichar Samadhi and Nirvichar Samadhi, which have extremely subtle objects as their focal points, can be explained. So that means first with the help of a certain formula, then without it also. So, but make sure that the mind is calm, mind is clear. Those qualifications we need. You can focus either on a minute or on a gigantic physical entity in the last two verses. But how easily a yogi can effortlessly switch from minute, gigantic, and yet remain unaffected by the inherent qualities. And now the same way he says, because mind is crystal clear, you can just have certain idea. And what are these ideas? The Vedas, they have given us these ideas in the form of Mahavakyas. Tat Tvamasi. You are that. So that's what he's talking about over here. You are that. Or in Christianity, it's said, be still and know that I am God. And what are we talking about? Who should be still? Mind should be still. Be still, know that I am God. So these ideas are expressed by phrases made of cluster of words. And that is a vichar. So first with some kind of a vichar and then beyond that. So simply focus itself on the idea which has no form. So Vitark and Nirvitark, they had the form. Over here, there's no form. There's no shape. There's no size. So there's no physical sense occupy the space over here. Initially, you will see that mind is aware of the process of attending the idea. But later on, when you keep on reinforcing these ideas, only the feeling that you are that. Aham Brahmasmi. Those are the Mahavakyas he is talking about over here. So the level of realization induced by concentration, an idea is called Savichar Samadhi. So mind and idea, they are so blended that they become one. So that's how the absorption, the level of absorption eventually leads a person to experience. When we say Aham Brahmasmi, what is that Aham? The Atma, Aham. Or even a biblical concept which is identical. I am and my Father are one. So there's no difference between Aham Brahmasmi and I am and my Father are one. This comes from that kind of a stillness, that kind of a absorption into that. Then he says, next one, what is the next level of samadhi? Suksham Vishyatvam Aling Paryavasanam. Suksham is a subtle, Vishyatvam, essence of the object, nature of the object. So that really means that meditation on the most subtle object. See, he started from the gross object, a form of a deity. Then he came up with the saying, Aham Brahmasmi, or Tat Tvamasi, or any other mantra. Now he says even subtler than that, subtler than the words also. Aling Paryavasanam. Alang means that which does not have a sign. See, ling, like a Shiv ling, that is a symbol. So even without the symbols, without the words, without the form. So aling means not tangible. Paryavasanam, final stage, final destination. So that is like an end in every respect. So he says meditation on the most subtle object culminates in meditation. A ling over here, understand, on prakriti, on the prakriti, when it's not even shaking, when it has not created anything, that is a ling, the building blocks of our life or the life of the universe. So in this sutra, Patanjali is making a crucial point, the highest goal of meditation. highest goal of spirituality. That you need to penetrate to the very nature of things and discover the cause, attain the freedom. He says the cause of sorrow is deep within, at every core of our being, and the cure lies there too. Keep on digging deeper and deeper. So that is why in this sutra, Patanjali says that the highest form of meditation is the meditation on a linga. A linga. Meditation on one's true nature. And what is our true nature? The Atma. Okay? So you can start with the outside, then slowly move within. The meditation on our true nature takes us all the way to our core being. Core being where seeds of all our troubles and struggles lie. Why I'm saying the seeds over here? Because these are still part of the Sabij Samadhi. This is not a highest Samadhi. This is a very powerful way to move up, but still it is with the seeds. Seeds still lie there. And that's what he's going to tell us in the next sutra. So whether it's a Savitark Samadhi or Nirvitark Samadhi, Savichar Samadhi or Nirvichar Samadhi, he says, still it is with the seeds of our sanskaras. Because we got to have this knowledge. Through this knowledge, we can transform. Ta ev sabij samadhi. Ta means, see, there's a word tat. Ta is a plural of tat. Tat means that. So that means ta means these. These he is referring to the different forms of samadhis from verse number 42 to 45. That's what he's referring to. See, each sutra is connected with the previous sutra and the next sutra also. It's like a garland of beautiful flower of wisdom. So we cannot forget what he taught us. Otherwise, this Sabit Samadhi does not make any sense if we don't remember the last few verses. So ta means those, and ev means only or alone. Sabij means, sa means with, bij means seed. So together it means the state of samadhi that leaves its own impressions on the mind. Sabij. So it's not only the bij from the previous lives or previous days. There could be a seeds which samadhi itself is leaving on us. We got to be aware of that too. Any kind of a practice, it leaves the impression too. So samadhi is spiritual absorption. So those samadhis are indeed the samadhi with the seeds. I am a devotee of Krishna, or I am a devotee of Rama. Those are seeds too. I believe Lord Shiva. Those are all seeds. So all authentic sources of wisdom tell us that the mind is the source of both joy and joy and sorrow comes from these seeds. Intellectually, intuitively, we know that. So here Rishi Patanjali is reminding us that in the deep state of samadhi, all seeds of our joy and sorrow are exposed to the inner light. Inner light is who we are. In this light, we discover how to attain freedom once and for all. Okay, so always go back and see what he's telling us in those verses. That's what we need to practice. And by practicing, what are we trying to gain? So we gain clarity of mind either by meditating or on a spiritually illuminating stream of thought. So that's what he said, the process of meditation is described in 43. Then finest state of meditation, he kept giving it to us. So, but he's making a very important point in this verse, that each of the different forms of samadhi described in the preceding sutras, they contain seeds. And these seeds are quite potent. See, that's why sometimes it seems like I am doing the sadhana, but I don't feel lightness. I am still burdened. Where is this burden coming from? Because ultimately there shouldn't be any burden. We should feel light. We should feel very buoyant. So these seeds are quite potent. They have the capacity to sprout also, mature also, and reproduce also. That's why we have to be very, very careful about it. So we are trying to reclaim a peaceful, tranquil mind. So we got to be very diligent about this whole practice. Are we really moving forward? Getting rid of the seeds? Or are we putting more and more? We can call it a good seed, but those are nonetheless seeds. Good seeds are also seeds. And here we are supposed to roast all the seeds. And he is expanding this idea in the next sutra. He says, Nirvichar, Visharadye, Adhyatma Prasada. Nirvichar. Nir means without, vichar means thinking. So the samadhi devoid of the thought process. Okay, so this is definitely higher than the nirvikalpa. Nirvichar is higher, but then he says, Visharadye. Visharde means upon purification. It's like a transparency. Or another way you can understand, infusing with more sattvic qualities or more and more virtues in your personality. Visharde. Adhyatma. Adhyatma means spiritual. Prasad. Prasad is illumination or joy or grace. That's what prasad means. In common Hindi, we use the word kripa, prasad. So he says, from further purification of nirvichar samadhi, spiritual illumination ensues. So what he's saying, that do not let your samadhi become an obstacle. Although any form of samadhi is better than no samadhi, but attachment to the experience of the samadhi can also become an obstacle. It will prevent an aspirant to move on to the higher levels of samadhi. That is what he's trying to tell us. That do not let your samadhi become an obstacle. But he's talking about definitely bring the samadhi to the nirvichar first. So Sabij samadhi leaves its own subtle impressions on the mind. See, in the Sabij samadhi, you have the opportunity to see your seeds. Then do not get attached to those seeds. Detach from those seeds. Overcome that obstacle and move forward. So that means, sure, you are meditating every day. You feel that you have attained that samadhi. but keep on infusing more and more sattvic virtues. If you don't commit to that, very easily arrogance comes. And that's why this is a very beautiful word, Visharade. Patanjali, Rishi Patanjali has chosen Visharade. Very common word. I'm sure most of you know this. Literal meaning of Visharade is essential qualities, characteristics, and attributes of the goddess Sharda. And goddess Sharda is who? Saraswati. Goddess Saraswati. So Sharda is another name for Saraswati, the goddess of wisdom and creativity, who is the inherent power of the creator himself. That is a Brahma. And goddess Saraswati is sitting on a white swan swimming in a lake of milk. She has 4 hands. She holds a white lotus full bloom. She holds a book which is like a Veda. And other 2 hands are holding the celestial string instrument which is called Veena. So symbolically, these are the qualities we need to cultivate. Lotus means purity. Bring more and more purity in your life. Study the scriptures. It's not that you have attained Samadhi, you don't have to study anymore. We live in this world, we got to keep on cultivating more and more wisdom. And the Veena, the music of our Veena, the life force we got to remember, which is pulsating inside us. And she is the witness of the entire lake. Everything which is holding stays above, not drowned. And that's how we got to live as a yogi or yoga aspirants. Cultivate the good qualities, keep on infusing more and more good qualities, but remain above all this. Do not drown into it, stay afloat. And if we can do that, if we keep on practicing this, if we can get over these hurdles, with the help of the meditation, we are crossing those hurdles. We feel blessed with this joy, which is residing in the inner core of our personality. What really happens? To that kind of a yogi, Ritambra Tatra Pragya. This Pragya word we learned in Bhagavad Gita also. But this Pragya, we can have this Pragya only after going through all these. Keeping the mind clean, doing our duties, keep on cultivating the qualities, doing the practice. Then Ritambra Tatra Pragya. Rhythm is the eternal law of nature, the basic principle of existence. Or it's also called the ultimate principle of sustainability. Rhythm. Bhara means filled. So in other words, the state of consciousness which is saturated in the rhythm. Rhythm bhara. Bhara means complete. Tatra means there. Pragya means intuitive knowledge. The knowledge that transcends the limitations of the time and space, that is pragya. Absolute knowledge, not the relative knowledge. Therein resides intuitive wisdom laden with rhythm. So this is a dawn of the intuition. This is not instinct. Animals have instinct too. As human beings, sure, we have instinct too. But we have the capacity to cultivate this intuition. This intuition comes by connecting with the God, connecting with the higher. All the Vedic mantras were written from this pragya, intuition. So Patanjali describes the entire range of samadhis earlier in two main categories, sabij and nirbij. He has dedicated all these sutras, starting from 42 to 50, explaining these sabij samadhis, and one sutra to explain the highest form, nirbij samadhi. So why Rishi Patanjali has placed so much emphasis on sabij samadhis? Because average person, even a yogis, it takes time to get rid of all the clutter in the mind. And sabij samadhi is that. So we still have the sanskaras, and with the help of the practice, with the right eye on that ultimate goal, we can keep on evolving higher and higher. Mental clarity comes only when we can transcend the worldly thoughts, allow the mind to become completely still. It's a very crucial stage, very crucial. But once we have crossed this, to go into that nirbij samadhi, it's easy then. It's like starting something is hard. Planting the seed, making sure it grows. It becomes a sapling and a little plant. But once it has taken roots, once it has taken some leaves also, we know that we don't have to protect it as much. That's how this transformation is done. So during sabij samadhis, there is a chance to slip down. Once we are in a nirbij samadhi, it's easier. Okay, most of the work is first. That's why we have to make a commitment. There has to be a commitment to infuse your mind with inner purity. And that's what that Vaishardhe word was. So you cultivate this inner purity by activating your own sadhana and practicing compassion, practicing kindness, dispassion, selfless service. All of that is part of it. Just keep on refining in the practice of sabij samadhi daily. It's not only once a while. Every single day you got to go through this. Every single day. Contemplation and self-reflection is part of it too. So lot of discipline. That's why the sutras started with the discipline. Artha yoga anushashanam. Anushashan means very strict discipline. No matter what is happening around us, we got to stick to our discipline. Rise above all the disturbances and distractions and make it a firm commitment. So you can see that to achieve there, it takes more than just one pointed mind. It definitely need a clarity also, calmness also, vigilance also. And a mind who has become pure, keep on practicing and slowly you'll have intuitive wisdom, the pragya. So samadhi and pragya actually, they go hand in hand. A person who has attained this samadhi, the intuitive wisdom will fall. So as you progress in your meditation, you become spontaneous, very quick to distinguish. See what pragya is? You will know what is the difference between right and wrong, good and bad, true and false. Your judgment becomes sharper. So this intuition, you will see that your judgment becomes sharper, your decisions are free from doubt. And as a result, you gain confidence. That's why they say the yogis have a lot of confidence. Where is it coming from? It's coming from this pragya. And from this confidence, their power, willpower, and determination becomes stronger. And then you are not afraid of the unknown now. This is how you find yourself walking on the path of self-mastery effortlessly. Because you're sure of it. So this is why Rishi Patanjali is telling us here in Sutra 48 that intuitive wisdom is laden with rhythm. So self-propelled law of sustainability. So you know how to live in this world. You have become a master of this body also. You have become a master of the circumstances also. Okay, so that's how a yogi lives. We even begin to see our karmic deeds. And some of those karmic deeds could be noble and delightful. But there could be some karmic deeds we have done which are dishonorable and painful. But we know that. We accept it and we go through the fruits of those without shaking our inside. Because we have cultivated the power of dispassion, vairagya. That is what which is making you so powerful to discriminate in our action. So just remember that Sabij Samadhi stages are the most productive phase of our inner journey. Never think that, oh, you are only on that level. Very productive. At no other time is the mind as active and productive as during this stage of meditation. So that's why we got to become more vigilant. That's why the yogis, they even, some of them very famous ones, they ran away from the crowded places. They went into the jungles, into the caves, into the mountains to do this practice. Because that practice was a Sabij Samadhi practice. When they came back, they wanted to just spread this knowledge to the masses, to the people like us. They were fully established. Nothing could shake them. But they had compassion for people like us. And they gave the message to us. Those are the messengers. So we don't have to run away. We don't have to go away. But in our own homes, under our own comfortable place, we can just intensify our own Sabij Samadhi. Get rid of the seeds and come to that Nirbij Samadhi place where there's a absolute clarity which has become your nature. You are no longer ignorant of your abilities, your duties, your responsibilities, and your real nature also, who you are. The revelation of the higher truth is the hallmark of a yogi's life. This revelation. But this gives rise to a very crucial question for many seekers. How can I be sure that the knowledge that descended in my mindful during meditation is a revelation from intuition? Is it really a pragya? Or it is a figment of my own imagination? Because you will see things, you will hear things, which is called a revelation. And Patanjali addresses this question. This question does come. Many of you have asked me this. In my meditation, this came. Is it really true or am I just imagining it? Let's see what Rishi Patanjali says. He says, Shrut, Anuman, Pragya, Anya Vishya, Vishesharth, Tavat. Shrut, that which has been heard, or that which has been passed on by oral tradition, Shrut. That's why the Vedas are called Shrutis. So Shrut, the ancient spiritual text books, Vedas, Shrut. Anuman, inference. Pragya, intuitive knowledge, revelation. Anya Vishyaha, other objects. So that means, which is totally different from both Shrut and Anuman. Vishesharthatvat, the knowledge whose content and source are unique. Vishesh means unique, special, extraordinary. The content of intuitive wisdom is totally different from that which can be derived from scriptural sources and inference. For both its sources and its intent are unique and extraordinary. What does it really mean? That means that knowledge which is flowing from the realm of intuition is unique in the sense that it's not dependent on the scriptures, inference, or any other evidence for its validity. That means it's crystal clear. There's no doubt in your mind. It's almost like a light is passing through it. There's an original clarity about it, brilliance about it. It is completely unalloyed. That's why it's called revelation. If there is even the slightest urge to consult the scriptures to verify whether or not you have experienced it, it really means either that the revelation did not descend from the field of pure intention, or that before landing in the domain itself was muddy. Okay, so, and what is the most powerful impurity in the domain of our mind? Ego, asmita. That is the biggest contamination. Asmita, I amness. Strong self-identification with the false you. Your body, your position, your accomplishments. That's what the asmita is. Because asmita creates its own world and lives in it. And he's going to talk about it more in the future verses. So over here, we are not going to talk too much about it. So, but if the clarity is there, you know. If clarity is not there, this ego is creating a little waves in there. Okay. So how do we know if the light of revelation has picked up the impurities from the realm of asmita? Next sutra he tells us. He says, Tajaha sanskar anye sanskar pratibandhi. Taja means born of that, evolving from that. Sanskar, the subtle impressions of the past. Anya sanskar pratibandhi. That which cancels or neutralizes the karmic impressions of the past. So in other words, the subtle impressions born of that intuitive wisdom, cancel all other sanskaras. So that means there's a freedom from the bondage of the karmas because of this pragya. And pragya came because of the samadhi. And samadhi we reached because of meditation. And meditation, the dhyan we could cultivate because of our sadhana. So this is clearly, he is telling us how we can get rid of the whole, all the sanskaras. Not just some sanskaras, all the sanskaras, all the seeds. How can we really burn them? How can we roast them? With the help of the wisdom, intuitive wisdom, which is being born with the help of this samadhi. That's how in one lifetime we can attain godhood. This is what he is telling us. Keep on refining the meditation with the practice. Purer the mind, greater the chance it will be illumined by the inner light. So mental purification and a meaningful meditation, they go hand in hand. So somebody says, I'm going to meditate every day, but the rest of the time I'm going to just do whatever I want to do. It's not going to work. We got to live yoga 24/7. Okay, they go hand in hand. So it's only in a purified mind that the light of the Atma. See, light is already there in all of us. But the light of the Atma, the light of the soul, it will shine in its full brilliance. And that's how we can experience all this. This experience is so clear, so crisp, so unalloyed that it does not require any validation. That's what Rishi Patanjali is saying. You don't need to consult anything. You know that. You have that surety because it's a self-evident. Okay, it doesn't need any other affirmation. So that's why the scriptures call it intuitive wisdom, pragya. So in the intuitive wisdom, in other words, there is no impurity at all. There is room neither for distortion nor for the slightest trace of doubt. So upon reaching the state of meditation, a yogi is no longer affected by his previous deeds or by the fruits of those. The yogi becomes master of himself. And the voice of the soul becomes the guiding force in all of life's endeavors. Because of this revelation is so clear, so bright. It's almost like in the dark, you cannot see. You need to walk. You take a flashlight. And with the help of the flashlight, you keep on walking. So that's how a yogi lives. The guidance is coming from the light within, the light of the Atma. That's where the guidance is coming, and that's what pragya word is. So see, this sutra clarifies that regardless of how profound and bright the revelation, if it does not cancel our preoccupations, prejudices, then this is not a clear indication that the mind was not purified. So it's like you don't have a clarity, that means mind was not clear. For example, if your spiritual revelation instills your mind and heart with the feeling that you had an experience of a Hindu god, rather than the experience of God, it means the flow of revelation passed through a mind that was still filled with Hindu elements. That's what he's telling us. Because God is not a Hindu God or a Muslim God or a Christian God. God is God. Okay? These are the prejudices our sadhana, if we are doing it properly, will just dissolve. This revelation of God, if it's contaminated, then you can still worry about the Hindu hell or a Hindu heaven. Those are the prejudices. We got to use this sadhana, the yogic sadhana, to clean the slate completely, so that we can see in the real sense who we are. That's what yoga, that's why they say the yoga is for everybody. It is not a Hindu thing. There's no ism who can just say that it's mine. It's for everybody. Anybody who has a body and a mind and the intellect, yoga is for them. That's why we see that yoga is being practiced by everybody these days. But most of the people are still practicing just a physical part. But if more and more people starting practicing this, if they are purifying their minds, only then there will be a peace in this world. That's why commonly it's said that if we want to bring peace on this earth, yoga is the way. Yoga combines, not divides. But we got to bring our practice to this level. Ritam bharatat pragya. Then the last verse of this chapter. Tasyapi nirodhe sarv nirodhat nirbija samadhi. Tasyapi. Tasya means of that. That means related to that. Api means even. Nirodhe, upon restraining, controlling, cancelling. Sarv nirodhat. Sarv means all. So due to the cancellation of everything, all the seeds, samadhi, the completely still state of mind. So upon cancellation of even that, which we were talking about, everything else is cancelled. This is called a nirbij samadhi. That's why I told you, for nirbij samadhi, he used only one verse. For the samij samadhi, several verses. Because that's where most of the time we need to spend upon. Seeds are still there. It takes time to get rid of the seeds, roast the seeds. Once we have roasted that, we are in that nirbij samadhi, the highest samadhi. So upon cancellation of even that, everything else is cancelled. This is called nirbij samadhi, perfect freedom. So receiving revelation is a great spiritual achievement. Revelation grants us a clear understanding of ourselves, who we are, our relationship with the creation, and also with the Creator also, as well as our place in this world. So this person at this stage is not gone away from here. So Jivan Mukta, he's living in this world, but torch bearer this person is, this yogi is, because the concepts are crystal clear. All the seeds have been roasted. This is a moksha. Jivan Mukta. Mukta is a moksha. This is called a freedom. Desirelessness becomes a part of this person's nature. Because average person has desires. Desires could be rajasic, tamasic, sattvic, all kinds of desires. But this person, mind is desirelessness. Even the highly sought spiritual powers, such as the vision of the gods and the goddesses, to be able to see the past and the future, astral travel, the power to be more than at one place, or having many bodies, This person can have, but doesn't have the desire. These are some of the powers we will learn in the 3rd chapter yogis have. So at this stage, that person has all those, but doesn't talk about it, doesn't show it, doesn't even want it. These powers, they run after this yogi, but a yogi says, doesn't even smile at them, because he knows that smiling means that they will take hold of him. So this is the culmination of a meditative state that is filled with the light of revelation. Certain impressions born of that intuitive wisdom cancel all other sanskaras, because sometimes people say that we don't know for how many lifetimes we've been gathering these sanskaras, how we are going to let them go. So Rishi Patanjali says, the subtle impressions born of this pragya will cancel all the sanskaras. This is like an amazing level of freedom. Such a yogi sees both birth and death as a shadow of his soul. This realization grants freedom from the greatest fear, fear of death. Because yogi knows I'm not the body, just a shadow. So death means the disintegration of the body only, not the soul. And yogi knows I am the soul. So how did he reach there? With the help of all this sadhana. Attachment to what we have been considering me and mine is so strong in us. And that's why we feel terrified at the prospect of losing it. Losing it is like an annihilation. For us, losing is a death. But for a yogi, doesn't belong. This, he says, it's belong to the Prakriti. It is going back to the Prakriti. What am I to do here? I have played with these toys. I'm giving it back willingly. So that's why revelation brings us the gift of immortality. When we sing those mantras where we are praying to God for immortality, this is the immortality. To know which part of me is real me, which is immortal. Unless we cross this threshold, we will not attain perfection in yoga. So you can see that in this whole chapter, starting from the definition of yoga and emphasizing on the practice of it and how we should practice, he has given us everything in this. But still, he knew, these great sages, they knew as householders, we are still attached. How to practice this samadhi is beyond us right now. Not just a nirbit samadhi I'm talking about, or attaining the ritambra pragya, I'm talking about even a sabit samadhi or even a meditation itself. That's why the next chapter, chapter 2, he is bringing all these practices at our level. Where do we start? What should we do every single day? Okay, so from a very high level of wisdom, which he has given it to us, now he's coming down to our level. Again, the practice we must do. He's not going to do it for us. No guru can do practice for us. No God can do practice for us. We must do the practice. So that's why this chapter 2, the very first verse, is so important for us, because he's telling us how to do it. And the title of the second chapter is Sadhana Pad. Sadhana means practice. How to do the practice. So let's look at the very first verse of chapter 2. This is the heart of this second chapter. Tapaha, Swadhyay, Ishwar Pranidhan, Kriya Yoga. You have all heard this term Kriya Yoga. So he is giving us a definition of what Kriya Yoga is. Tapaha. Tapaha means the tap. That means to heat, to shine, to transform. Tap refers to the practices, disciplines leading to acquiring a radiant body, healthy body, clarity of mind. So that's why generally tap is called austerity. Some people even call it a penance, where you have to put your body and mind through hardship. In other words, expanding your endurance. That is a tap. Sitting at one place, not moving for a required time of time in the same place, that's a tap. Body likes to move. Even if there's a pain in the knees, pain in the back, keep sitting. That's a tap. Getting up early in the morning to do your meditation, that's a tap. There's so many different ways we can do the tap, but ultimately, which shines our personality. That's a tap. Body and mind both. Swadhyay. Swa means self, like a one's own. Adhyay means study. So study of the self. We can study the chapter of our life separately. We can study our relationship to each other. We can study thoroughly the scriptures also, because that's where we get the knowledge. That's all called Swadhyay. Ishwar Pranidhan. Complete faith in the guiding and protecting power of the absolute reality. Ishwar Pranidhan. Kriya Yoga. Kriya Yoga. This is together called Kriya Yoga. It's an action plan for acquiring a calm and tranquil mind. Kriya. Kriya means action. So we need to do something about it. It's not just something we memorize. So it's an action plan. Action plan which has the tapa and swadhyay and Ishwar Pranidhan part of it. That's a Kriya Yoga. So the systematic practice of yoga consists of three components. That's what it means, the literal translation of this verse. Tapa, Swadhyay, Ishwar Pranidhan. And another way you can understand Ishwar Pranidhan is unshakable faith in the guiding and protecting power of God. Unshakable faith. Ishwar Pranidhan. So these are like a 3 steps to self-transformation. So that's why I said it's like an action plan. We need to bring it into our daily life. So this is the first sutra of chapter 2. And in a way, it's a continuation of the last sutra of the chapter 1. So in the last sutra, he said ultimate freedom you can gain. But in order to gain ultimate freedom, we need to do our homework. These are the prerequisites for attaining samadhi. So if somebody says, I cannot really attain samadhi right now, then a person need to go back and see, where do I really stand? In the tapa, swadhyaya also, and Ishwar Pranidhan also. And in order to do this tapa, we definitely need to look at the prerequisite, which was vairagya, which was mentioned in the first chapter, vairagya, dispassion. So they're all, see, these are like a little links in the same beautiful necklace. We cannot do the tapa unless we get detached from these charms and temptations of this world. So this practice which is prescribing for us in this chapter is very important. We cannot just negate it. We cannot just sit and just keep on wishing that we'll attain that samadhi, which will get rid of all our sanskaras. So in order to extinguish these sanskaras, we need to just bring this into our daily life. Okay, it's like putting a plan together to really discover our core strength. And executing this plan systematically is called Kriya Yoga. Okay, if somebody asks you what is a Kriya Yoga? Kriya Yoga consists of three components. Tap. Tap helps us assess our physical capacity, actually. Tap. Swadhyay. Swadhyay helps us grasp our mental ability and intellectual ability. Because when we study our mind, study our intellect, we need to study some scriptures also. So that's why Swadhyay. And Ishwar Pranidhan allows us to see the depth of our emotional maturity. So these are the three areas we are working on with the Tapa, physical capacity, Swadhyay, our mental and intellectual capability, and Ishwar Pranidhan, our emotional. The depth of our emotional maturity. So together, these three help us to see our strengths and weaknesses. And if we have a proper guidance, and guidance always comes from a teacher. That's why they say yoga cannot be practiced without a teacher. And teacher you got to have who is available to you, who can teach you unconditionally, who can help you climb up the stairs. So with the proper guidance, a teacher can help us design a course of practice that is perfect for us, for our overall growth. Because we cannot just blindly pick up austerity. Teacher will tell us what kind of austerity you are supposed to cultivate, which scriptures you should study, how to check yourself, how to reflect on your own growth. And the same thing, God also, how to surrender to God too. So there's a lot of information in Bhagavad Gita also about tap. Lord Krishna tells us tap could be sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. Tap is needed to be at the physical level, at the mental level, at the verbal level, at the thought level. He really describes it beautifully for us. So, as a serious yoga students, we need to study these two scriptures together, Bhagavad Gita and Yog Darshan. So, but over here, remember, tap is not a torture. Torture is only when somebody else is telling us to do. Torture is when somebody is punishing us. Over here, it's not a question of punishment. It is an ability to awaken the dormant energy within us. We all have that energy. We just let it sleep. We need to awaken it. And a person who undertakes such a practice is called a tapasvi. Tapasvi. So at a practical level, tap entails curtailing or gathering the fire within. That fire is inside us. With this fire, you overcome the sloth and inertia. You become active, not being dependent on others for your salvation, taking charge of your own destiny, putting your intellectual knowledge in practice. It's not that my stars are not right. When the right stars come, a right direction come, a right teacher come. No, you become a master of your own destiny. Enduring the discomfort is tap. When you commit yourself to this discomfort, and you have a true understanding of the higher goal and purpose of practice, your mind will not perceive it as a torture. Because you know, without going through all this, you won't attain the higher goal. So it's not a torture. It's a discipline. So we got to know why we are undertaking a practice. If you know the goal, if you know the objective, how can it remove the inertia in us? And inertia and sloth, that's all tamasic. So we need to get rid of that. Any kind of a confusion in our mind, we got to let go. So just remember that practice tapa is the very first part. So the very first level of the tapa is definitely at the physical level. Even though Lord Krishna talks about the words also and the mind also, but at the physical level first. Deeply rooted habits which we have, we don't like to change, but we need to change in order to evolve ourselves. Summon your willpower, stick to your decision, adopt a healthy lifestyle. That is a beginning point. Eat right, get up at the right time, sleep at the right time. Those are all part of this whole practice. Practice of pranayam, mantra jap, selfless service, pilgrimage. Practice truth in thought, speech, and action. That's all part of the tapa. Okay, so without a tapa, you cannot be a yogi. If you want any kind of a change in our life, any transformation, tapa is the very fundamental to it. And again, remember, we don't want to do tamasic tapa, sattvic tapa. Go back to Bhagavad Gita and see what sattvic tapa is. Then swadhyaya, self-study, reflect on yourself. But we can reflect on ourselves, on our behavior, on our speech, only if we know what the right and the wrong is. So that's why study of the scriptures. And that's what we do in these classes. We study the scriptures. And self-study is also accompanied by like a daily reflection. It's not just once a week with the help of the mokshastras. Okay. And then let me just finish this up because we are going to take a 15-minute break. But let me finish this particular part, Ishwar Pranidhan. Ishwar Pranidhan. Very loosely, it's translated as surrender to God. But the very first step in practicing Ishwar Pranidhan requires making an effort to comprehend the true meaning of Ishwar, what God is. And we learned that also in the first chapter. Ishwar means unrestricted, unfettered, divine power. It is not just almighty, it's all knowing also. It's auspicious, it's beginningless, it's endless. It is all pervading, and it is the eye of the soul. That's what's Ishwar. So unshakable faith in the guiding and the protecting power of God is the essence of Ishwar Pranidhan. And infusing our actions with this faith is the second step. So first, you got to know what Ishwar is, what the meaning of the Ishwar is. Second is Your action should be remembering that God is everywhere watching me. My actions should be so that my God is happy with me. That is a surrender to God. And surrendering the fruits of our actions, not being affected by the results of our action, is the final step of Ishwar Pranidhan. So Ishwar Pranidhan is not just going to the temple every weekend or on our birthdays or donating some money. That is not Ishwar Pranidhan. Ishwar Pranidhan is this. 3 steps. Remember these 3. And the final test of whether we are living with the presence of God, which is Ishwar Pranidhan, there should be a peace inside us. Not a fear of God, that God is watching me, but a peace that I am under the protection of God. God is my creator. God is my father. God is my mother. God is my everything. That's a Ishwar Pranidhan. So we got to work hard with a surrendered attitude in the full realization that we are simply an instrument in the hands of God. He is almighty, omniscient, Lord of all that exists. So detoxify your body with the tap. Nurture the senses and purify the mind and your intellect with the swadhyay, and ultimately feel protected by surrendering to this higher power, which is everywhere all the time for all of us. It's not just for few. So this is called Kriya Yoga. So that's why Rishi Patanjali said, this is for people like us who are starting out on this path. Tap, Swadhyay, Ishwar, Pranidhan. So we'll just stop it here, and in 15 minutes, we'll come back again. And
Okay, good.
so chapter 2 and verse number 2. And in the verse number 1, we learned the definition of Kriya Yoga. Tapu Swadhyaya Ishwar Pranidhan. That's called a Kriya Yoga. Okay. So now in the second chapter, the second verse, he's giving us the objective of the Kriya Yoga. Samadhi bhavanarthaha klesh tanu karan arthaha. Samadhi, we all know that word now, the highest state of spiritual absorption, Samadhi. Bhavana, notion. Artha, meaning. So together when we look at Samadhi Bhavanarth, it really means to induce a state of total mental stillness. Kalesh means affliction. And we'll learn more about Kalesh. Kalesh is a very important part of Yog Darshan. Kalesh word. Just like a Samadhi, the Kalesh also. So, but we'll know more later on. Right now, just remember the affliction or the source of bondage. That's a Kalesh. Bondage, source of bondage. Tanu Karan, to weaken, to minimize. Arth means goal. So Kalesh Tanu Karnartha means the objective of minimizing the source of the affliction. So that's why we do this Kriya Yoga. This is the objective of Kriya Yoga. So objective of Kriya Yoga is to induce Samadhi and minimize afflictions. Minimize the causes of the bondage. So we all know by now that Samadhi is the goal of yoga. Samadhi is the culmination of the spiritual achievement and the heart of yoga. That's why Rishi Patanjali put Samadhi path as the very first chapter of this great scripture. Samadhi is the pristine state of the mind. In the state of Samadhi, a yogi has an opportunity to see himself clearly. In Samadhi, the self-realization dawns. A yogi realizes his true nature in Samadhi. Like who he is, what his relationship is with the absolute reality. So he knows who he is, both in relation to and isolation from the world of this matter and energy. So it's like a truth in totality is seen in Samadhi. That's what Samadhi is. So that's why we are very grateful to these great teachers of the past. They are describing the process which is leading to Samadhi, and also what do we attain when we are in Samadhi. So Samadhi is a process. It's a mind's journey to reconnect. Normally mind is very scattered. It doesn't feel that kind of a power. But in Samadhi, it's connecting. It's just scatteredness is going away. And that's why Kriya Yoga is very important. So the purpose of Kriya Yoga is to induce Samadhi. So if somebody says, no, I practice Kriya Yoga. But if there's no movement towards a Samadhi, that means you got to look at it. What is missing? So Kriya Yoga is a practitioner friendly path. It's a very friendly way Lord Rishi Patanjali is telling us that commit yourself to a structured discipline to tapa, detoxify your body, make your limbs and organs strong, energetic, increase your stamina, minimize the chances of falling prey to sloth, inertia, procrastination. So that's why lifestyles, I mentioned earlier, lifestyle got to change. You live yoga. And with Swadhyaya, you can make a realistic assessment of your current circumstances and decide what you need to change at a pace which is manageable. Okay, that's a Swadhyaya. And a firm reliance on God is Ishwar Pranidhan. You exercise your willpower while enjoying the virtues of contentment. Like when you feel that I'm in the lap of God or at the feet of God, under the protection of God, contentment comes, which is called santosha. Okay, so just together you can see over here, goal is what and how do we need to do. So the fruits of Kriya Yoga help us turn our mind inward and we become aware of our core being. That's called a Samadhi Bhavana. Samadhi Bhavana. Okay, and all this is emerging out of Kriya Yoga. So now, Patanjali is going to explain in the next few verses how lack of understanding is the source of our inner unrest. When we don't know something, we are disturbed. How, in order to overcome this inner unrest, we labor to know our true nature, and how our inability to know who we are, what our relationship is with others, breeds to this unending suffering, chain of suffering, because we don't have a clarity. And how this phenomena of birth and death is propelled by our inherent desire to know ourselves actually. This is our inherent nature. We come back again and again to know ourselves, because only as a human being we will be able to know ourselves, our inherent nature. But it has become such an unending process for us because we don't walk on this path with the proper knowledge. So that's why he called this the afflictions of human beings. So this next sutra, number 3, is the heart of the second chapter. Avidya, asmita, rag, dvesh, abhinivesh, klesha. You remember the klesh word came in the last verse, klesh? So these are the kleshas. This is a definition of a klesh. There are 5 kinds of kleshas. Avidya. Avidya is the lack of knowledge, distorted understanding, or a limited knowledge. Asmita is I amness, a limited sense of being. Limited means you're experiencing yourself in isolation from your fullness. You are part of God, but you think you're the body. You're part of God, but you think what you have accomplished. That is asmita. Rag is the attachment. Rag is the binding force of desire. Or another way, it is holding on to what appears to be pleasant. Rag. Dvesh is the opposite of rag. Aversion, hatred. Abhinivesh, it is a fear of losing life or fear of death. That's abhinivesh. So distorted self-understanding, mistaken self-identity, attachment, aversion, and fear of death are the afflictions. So these are the kleshas, these are the afflictions. They hold us back. But starts from not knowing who you are, avidya. So to move forward in the study of Yoga Sutras, it is very important to understand what is the cause and what is its effect. Why our mental suffering is there, restlessness is there. Because goal of yoga is to eradicate suffering, to bring calmness. And yoga holds this philosophy that unless the cause is removed, suffering will return. So cause has to be removed. It's almost like if somebody is sick, the cause of the sickness has to be removed. Not just a temporary putting a bandage on. Yoga believes in removing the cause. So the suffering has a cause, and what is the cause? Okay, so it is time to look into the deeper causes of our suffering and uproot them once and all. That's what this great teacher is telling us. And he says lack of understanding is the first one. Not knowing who we are, where we came from, where we are going, what our relationship is with the world, inside, outside. What preceded before our birth and what follows when we die. We need to know that. Why our hearts and minds are full of fear and doubt. Our inability to withstand the pain caused by this doubt and fear forces us to hold this limited knowledge of ourselves. It's almost like to an ignorant person, this body is me. I'm going to hold on to it. Or my relationships, or my money. So not knowing who you are, you hold on to the wrong sense of individuality, which is asmita. To a knowledgeable person, the birth of asmita is a spiritual death. That means I'm identifying with my body or whatever I have accumulated. This is a death for a spiritual person. That why did I do that? Why am I doing that? And the disappearance of knowledge pertaining to the higher reality, a yogi is always afraid of. We want to have that knowledge who we are. Because once our asmita, we are using our asmita to protect us, we just start clinging to this life. And after this moment, we run after anything that seems to support and nurture our I amness and our self-identity. And at the same time, we also endeavor to run away from anything that threatens our self-identity. And that's how rag and dvesh are born. Attachment and aversion is born. Anybody who says you are so wonderful, we say, oh, you are my friend forever. And anybody who criticizes us, we don't want to see their faces. This is what rag and dvesh is, because we forgot who we are. So with the birth of the attachment and aversion, we are completely surrounded by an inescapable condition called abhinivesh, fear. Because we didn't know who we are. We are part of God, which is eternal, which is deathless, which is part of God. We forgot who we are. We clung to something which is temporary. We got attached to it. And then we are afraid to lose it. So that's abhinivesh. So these five, avidya, asmita, rag, dvesh, abhinivesh, form a complete range of afflictions. Okay? So memorize these terms, whether in English or in Sanskrit or both. Rishi Patanjali is introducing the next sutra, which explains the fundamental cause of all affliction. Because why do these afflictions arise to begin with? He says, avidya kshetra utre sham parsupt tanu vichin udara nam. Avidya, again, you know this now, lack of self-understanding, avidya. Kshetra means field or ground. Utre sham, upcoming or next. Prasupt, dormant. Fast asleep. That is prasupt. See, supt means somebody sleeping. Prasupt means deeply sleeping. Tanu means weak, feeble, barely alive. That's tanu. Vichin, broken, frequently interrupted. That is vichin. Udara nam means active, full blown, generous. That's udara nam. So regardless of whether they are dormant, feeble, disjointed, or active. What is he talking about? About asmita, rag, dvesh, and abhinivesh. So the following four. He's not talking about the avidya. He's talking about these following four. He says they live in the deep soil of avidya. So these are the seeds of affliction. So this is a continuation of previous sutra. So in the previous sutra, Patanjali identified the fivefold afflictions. When they are in motion, when the avidya is in motion, it will set all the others in motion. That's what happens, because the field is the avidya. For example, when ego is agitated, the self-identity, asmita, is challenged, automatically attachment, aversion, fear come into play. So this is like a continuation of that. So just remember that avidya, or the ignorance of who you are, is the ground for the other four. Okay, field means the ground. And avidya is an amazing mystery. Amazing mystery. And avidya is the one which brings our ego and others out. So now, dormant, feeble, disjointed, fully active. That means they could be at a different stage, but they are still there. As long as avidya is there, the others are there too. It's almost like a seed is sitting in a silo. It may be capable of germination, but it can stay dormant because of the lack of moisture, lack of light. But seed is still there. That is prasupta, dormant. Scriptures point out this. During Samadhi, you can see there are some sanskaras of yours which are sleeping in there. They can erupt if you don't roast. During Samadhi, we are supposed to roast our sanskaras, because if we don't roast all the seeds of ours, they can germinate at some in future time. And then weak. Weak means they are not very strong to grow successfully on their own, because the quality of that seed is weak. Or sometimes what happens when that particular seed, particular desire or vasana, it just accompanies somebody else's, then it will grow. Your own vasana was weak, that seed was weak, but with the help of somebody else. And it could be for the good as well as bad. The seeds could be a seed of a grain, and it could be a seed of a poison ivy. So there are some weak seeds in us. So during Samadhi, we roast those also. And then vichin, frequently interrupted, those are also there. Sometimes we see them, sometimes we don't. A teenager with the company of others sometimes will start smoking, taking drugs. Some seeds were there. Desire for sensual pleasure, revenge, compassion, cruelty, they coexist. Those are all seeds. And as a yogi, we need to roast those also. And then he says, Udara Nam, some seeds are full blown. And again, good or bad both. Very powerful seeds, fully active afflictions. Such afflictions are robust. Okay? There is a vigorous growth of those in us. And once they are growing, they demand that next generation of seeds be grown too. And they become even bigger than that. For example, some of us have a seed of self-identity as a mother or a father. When fully active, it is so strong that it swallows all other identities and causes us to suffer from complexes. It defines our existence, dictates our behavior, forces us to live inside the fortress of our self-importance. Just a mother. We forget who we are. Being a good mother, being a good father, not bad. But losing sight over your real identity is the problem. So this is a udarana, full blown. So what he's telling us, these seeds, some seeds in one person, some seeds could be weak, some disjointed, some could be overblown, but these are all the seeds of avidya, ignorance, not knowing your true nature. And he says it's a disease. Not knowing your true identity for a yogi is a disease. And this is the disease we need to get rid of. How? Through Kriya Yoga. And through Kriya Yoga, Samadhi. And through Samadhi, keep on going up and up into the ladder. Now, in the next verse, he tells us what is this avidya? I mean, look at the gratefulness of this great rishi. First, he's telling us what is the problem, then identifying it further, opening it up for us. He says, problem is these five. Now defining for us. And he told us these five could be at different degrees in us. So now the definition of avidya. Anitya ashuchi, dukh anatmasu, nitya shuchi, sukh atam khyati. Avidya. Okay. Anitya means non-eternal, short-lived, anitya. Ashuchi, not clean, not pure. Dukh is the pain, suffering. Anatmasu, non-self. Nitya, eternal. Shuchi, pure. Sukh, happiness. Atam khyati, experience of or feeling of Atma, Atam khyati. Avidya, distorted knowledge. So he's saying making short-lived object. Impurity, suffering, and lack of awareness. For eternity, purity, happiness, and awareness of oneself, respectively. So in other words, thinking short-lived objects as eternal. Thinking impurity as purity. Thinking suffering as happiness. And a lack of self-awareness as awareness of yourself. That means not seeing the things with the right understanding. And that's what avidya is. So it's a beautiful verse where he is giving us, describing the nature and dynamics of avidya in a great detail. See, in the field of religion, they use the word sin. Sin is the most undesirable element in religion. In Indian philosophy, avidya is. Avidya is a lack of knowledge, and essentially it does not exist, yet it remains the source of fear for almost everyone. So it's almost like a maya. Maya doesn't exist. Maya, something which is not, but it has entrapped us. So avidya is also called Maya. And Patanjali approaches this subject of Maya with a very practical standpoint. That's why he's describing it, defining it for us. So carelessness regarding truth is avidya. So vidya is the truth, the carelessness about that is avidya. Not paying attention to the truth is ignorance. So that's why he said the very first thing, the anitya, thinking that it's anitya. For example, the truth is that everyone dies. That is the truth. Repeatedly, we have experienced it. But carelessness about this, thinking that we are not going to die, that is avidya. Because it makes us blind to it. We fail to see that one day we will leave this world. This material world we have to leave. So when the reality of death pushes it way into our ignorance from time to time, we work very hard to deny it. We want to escape it. We think everybody else dies, but we are not going to die. So those are the things which really, when we ponder upon these truths, then we see what is avidya and how to rise above this avidya. Okay, so the very first category of avidya, according to Patanjali, is mistaking short-lived objects for the eternal. For example, money. These days, we think that anybody who has more money is successful. But if we look deeper into it, it's a very illusory idea. The idea of money was invented to facilitate the exchange of goods. And this idea is inherently accomplished by fear, insecurity, and mistrust. There is nothing more volatile than money. People believe that they will find security and freedom in it. That is avidya. The result is that we lose sight of money's volatile nature, for we are forced to believe it to be a source of security. And as this kind of a belief matures, money becomes a central goal of life. Money is a means to live, not a source of life or a goal of life. Otherwise, people, the whole life is just revolved around the money. They will do anything to get more money. So when this idea grows, the yardstick of money we use for the success, we are stepping on this very ladder of avidya. When the means become the end, we are asking for a trouble. When money becomes our calling card, the ground for our self-identity, he says that's avidya. Scriptures say that to such a person, this world and the losses and gains which fill this world are the only reality. Beyond this world, nothing exists for this kind of a person. And that is the start of a downfall. A person deluded by this distorted understanding is bound to remain caught in the cycle of birth and death. So there's no evolution. It's just like a going around the same cycle. And the second category of avidya is mistaking impurity for purity. For example, all religions are in agreement about the spirituality, compassion, love, kindness, forgiveness, love of all and hate none, include all. Religion should be all inclusive. This is like a central theme for all the religions. But in spite of this fact, what do we see? In the name of God, in the name of isms, throughout the history, people have committed themselves to crusades, jihads. They're all done under the eye of religion. This is the offshoot of avidya. How can there be a greater impurity than bloodshed? And yet people find a sense of purity, spiritual sanctity in killing others or killing animals also. This is avidya. Such acts are painful. They breed anger, revenge, forces us to live and die in an impure and painful environment. And the third point he made in this verse is mistaking pain for pleasure. That's a third form of avidya. Let's look at drugs, alcohol, gambling. We all know that drugs are a source of misery. There's misery in obtaining them, misery in taking them, and even greater misery in quitting. But we think it's pleasure. People are attracted to it. That's avidya. And same is true for alcohol. We all know alcohol damages the liver, kills the brain cells, dulls the mind. That's why what do we hear? A person who's driving under the influence, they're breaking the law. Just a legality, not even morality or spirituality. We are talking about legality, which is a lot lower standard. And we think that we cannot have entertainment or enjoy or relax without alcohol, neither as individual or as a society. We need to recognize this. Yogis call this avidya. And how about gambling? No religion has anything good to say about gambling. The whole Mahabharata was because of gambling. It is a curse to both the poor and the rich. And it's widely recognized an extremely destructive form of entertainment. Gambling is a vivid manifestation of greed. I'll spend 1 and maybe I'll get 1,000. That's a greed. Greed fuels the base tendency to cheat, deceive, and lie. Those are all wrong notions in us. So loss of wealth, loss of respect, disintegration of their families because of this gambling. And yet people seek happiness in gambling. This is avidya. Okay, so going back to that, mistaking pain for pleasure is avidya. And the fourth thing is mentioned over here, mistaking material entities and objects for the soul. Common sense tells us that we have a body, but we are not the body. We eat for the body. When we eat food, we eat for the body, not for our soul. We don't know much about our soul yet, but we should not mistake our body for our soul. Intuitively, we should know this now. Soul accompanies the body at birth, But the body has no power to accompany the soul after death. We should remember this. Once the soul departs, everything is left behind. We know this. But we yet continue to dream about being here forever. Or sometimes we think that no, taking the body along with our soul at the time of the death, we dream about it. We think we can take it with us. And we can enjoy the same body in heavens also. That is all avidya. So all of this, when we look at it, see 4 ways he defined avidya for us. That avidya, surprisingly, it is there, so powerful. Even today, in one form or the another, we embrace avidya. By remembering this, we should at least get some light out. Live this life with a light of our soul, light of our Atma. So let me read this again. The reason I spent a lot of time on this verse, because this is the ground or the field. He said the kshetra, field. This is where the other seeds are growing. So the field of ignorance or avidya, or not knowing your real identity. Okay, so anitya, ashuchi, dukh, anatmasu, nitya shuchi, sukh, atamkhyati, avidya. Making short-lived objects for eternity. Impurity as purity. Suffering as happiness, and lack of self-awareness for awareness of oneself. He says this is avidya. So as human beings, as yoga practitioners, we got to, this is our homework. This is what we need to do. So I'll leave you over here. And next time when we get together, you will see that how he's defining asmita for us, how he's defining rag for us, the vesh also, abhinivesh also. So that tells you that how important these kleshas are for us to know, because our actions are dependent upon the kleshas. And our life is dependent upon our actions. And our ultimate releasing from this field of ours, this nature, this prakriti, it depends upon the actions. So that's why he's just building up a ground over here for us to practice also, to understand also. So I'll stop it here because we told you that you'll have enough time to ask the questions also. Okay, so I think let me do the Shanti part, and then after that we'll have question and answers. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vishishyate. Om Shanti 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 Om. Thank you very much. I know this is a not enough time, and we don't let you ask the questions right away, but on Zoom classes, this is the best we can do. But if you have some ideas, do let us know, because all these classes are for you to understand it better so that you can bring it into your life. Okay, so who has a question, Jyoti?
Sujata.
Yes, Sujata.
Myself. Okay, gotcha. I had a question about the the meaning of the word vikalp. In verse number 42, it's described as an option, while earlier on, I think it's verse number 6, I believe, it's described as a verbal delusion.
Yeah, it could be either one. See, Sanskrit language is such that each word has many, many meanings. Okay, over here in 42, the reason I said vikalpa, it's like a, you can say option or alternative.
So alternative truths, alternative
No, it's just like you can use either this form or that form. This is Vikalp over here. You can focus on the form.
Alternate forms.
Yeah, you can use any form. That's what he's trying to tell us.
So when we define it in verse number 6 as a verbal delusion, it's actually, I mean, it seems.
Okay, over there, Vikalp means something that was like a mental modification. Vikalp.
It says Praman Viparyaya Vikalpa Nidra Smriti.
Yes, something which is not there, but you think it's there.
Yeah, so in that it seems like it's a verbal misunderstanding on your part.
Yeah, exactly. That's a misunderstanding. Over here, you are using this some kind of a form, any kind of a form. But ultimately, see, right now, mind needs something to hold on to.
So you create.
Yeah, you are creating a divinity. Yeah, divinity is everywhere, but you have chosen that particular form to see the divinity in it. And
right.
who's doing it? Mind is doing it.
And so you're creating a representation of divinity.
Yes, yes. So that's why for some person, it's a Lord Krishna. For the other person, Lord Krishna is nothing. Jesus Christ.
Gotcha.
So who is deciding it? Your own mind is deciding it. Okay. So in that sense, understand this verse.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Jyoti.
Ari? So I actually have a question around the same topic. In choosing a higher power on which to focus, but that is also a seed, right? Because the mind is creating the
Because, yeah, exactly. You are using, see, some people have a Hindu seeds in them. Those are the seeds we have sown. Ultimately, we get to roast those also.
Yeah, that's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah, your own seeds are, definitely seeds are there. We cannot deny those.
And so in choosing what to focus on, it is also continuing to sow a seed. And
but that's why he said that ultimately with the help of this higher samadhis, all the seeds will be roasted. Okay? So that will come from the light. The real light will roast all the seeds. Okay?
Thank you.
But these are like seeds, definitely. That I like this form better than the other form. But then ultimately we got to see, what do we do with that form? What do we do with that mantra? What do we do with that practice? Where are we going? So that's what he is pointing the light on our mind. Okay, is that clear, Ari? Okay.
Thank you.
First, going on that same note of creating more seeds, the new seeds that we create, does that have a less effective, or are they?
No, it could be very.
Could be a strong.
They could be very potent if you're not, if you don't understand it.
Okay.
Like I'm a better meditator than you are.
Okay, got it.
My guru is better than yours.
Okay, got it.
Okay, we got to be very careful about these also.
Okay. And then Dr.
Yes,
Chandra
I think
has,
Dr.
Chandra has a question, yes.
Can you hear me, Hershiji?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. I have a couple of questions, maybe three.
Okay.
Ramanujacharya is a great Vaishnava Acharya who, for the basic for Kali Yuga, is Nama Sankirtan.
Yeah.
Lord Ram or Lord Krishna say Narayana, Om Namo Narayana.
Yeah.
With the alone we can, wash away our sins and reach Narayana. So, a situation like that, do you think we need to go through these tapas, all those things, when we can achieve?
Swadhyay, Ishwar Pranidhan, Yes, in order to reach to that level, definitely you need a love for God,
Yes.
surrender to God. In order to even do the Sankirtan, tap is needed.
Okay.
Swadhyay, to know yourself. So all of this is needed even for that.
Okay.
Definitely. Okay, they are all part of the Bhakti Marga also.
Okay, thank you. Second question.
Mhm.
In order to understand our tapas and swadhyay and knowing God, you need some basic literacy, it appears. Say like an ordinary people, like a farmer who goes in the morning, plows the land, say like cultivate some paddy and sell in the market. How does he know about these things to achieve God? He thinks getting in the morning, going to work and coming back, feeding his children is alone. So karma yogi, can he attain without going through all this tapas?
Yeah, see, tapas, with the tapas also you can do it. Do your duty wholeheartedly and not getting attached to the fruits.
Right.
Fruits will come. And have you seen some of those farmers or the people who do these, we call it mundane duties, even though they are very, we cannot live without their labor of work.
Yes.
They do it so religiously. They have so much faith in God.
Yes. So
They
they
really
have,
do.
I don't know whether they know, whether they pray or they don't know anything about God. My question is, just doing their duty alone,
Yeah, doing the duty alone. Yeah,
he
I
can
think God,
reach God.
yeah,
At
I
least
think,
after his death, he does not know where he is going. At least
yeah.
towards the end of his life, he does not know. All he knows about his land and his cows and his bulls. That's all he knows.
But if the mind is attached to the land and the cows, he will come back over there. That is the law
How
of
does
God.
he does not know that by all he needs is doing his duty. Don't you think God knows he didn't do anything wrong? He can directly take him.
Um,
Never
to
thought
me,
about anything bad except feeding people by cultivating his land.
yeah, but if the mind was calm, See, ultimate deciding factor is our mind. If feeding the people, tilling the ground, doing the duties, his mind was completely calm, he would have known himself.
I say, that's what you're saying.
Yes, he will know himself.
Yes,
Calm mind automatically will know who
yes,
truly we are, and we are nothing but part of God. So if he has
yes.
reached there by doing it calmly, sure, he'll attain the Godhood. But if he was doing it for certain other outer profit, then sure he'll come back according to the karmas.
One last, thank you, G. One
Sure.
last question. The loving God, why he created a beautiful deer to be eaten only by a lion or a tiger? How will you explain that situation? Why he created a food of one species, a dominant species over a weak species? How will you explain that in terms of?
Yeah, that's a law of this prakriti, the nature. Okay. Uh, in order to sustain this whole creation, food is needed. Lion and the tigers, they just eat and kill according to their instinct. They are not creating new karmas out of the instinct. See, just like a rat eats smaller creatures. So everything has to eat somebody. But as human beings, we have that wisdom, what to eat, what not to eat.
Yes, yes.
And that's why we create karmas. They don't create karmas. They are in those species according to their past karmas. But as human beings, we have the freedom to choose. So it's just like a law of nature.
So in other words, a human, say for example, who wants to eat a lot of non-vegetarian food, his thing, so he will be born as a lion to eat deers. In that case, what happened to the deer in the previous life? Why would a deer, such a nice creature, what was it doing in the previous life?
It's all because of the karmas. There are stories about that also, why somebody became a deer. It's a person's attachment to a deer. Whatever we were thinking about,
Yes, yes.
from that attachment. There is a story about a great rishi, Bharat. He was a king first, then he became a rishi. Then he happened to see a deer, mother deer, while giving a birth, getting shot by a hunter. So mother dies, baby is over there in the water. This rishi saves the baby deer,
Okay.
takes care of the baby deer, forgot about his own sadhana. First, he left the kingdom to become a rishi. Now, as a rishi, he just gets attached to the deer. What happens to him in the next life? He becomes a deer. But then what happens? Because the good karmas also come with you, he came as a deer in the vicinity of an ashram, where he could just listen to the discourses. As a deer, he could not understand, but at least the vibrations were going. And next life after that, he came as a rishi again.
I see.
So it's like a karmas which dictate, and that's what we're going to learn in this chapter. How the karmas, they dictate our species, our length of time, and whether predominantly we are going to suffer or we are going to enjoy in this life. Karmas are the main, it's like a bed of this. And how the karmas we do based upon these Glaciers. A person who is ignorant, his karmas will be bad. The person who knows what the reality is, what is eternal and what is non-eternal, what is a real happiness and what is suffering, karmas will be different. So based upon the Glaciers, karmas, because of the karmas, the experiences, this cycle continues. But we are here to end this cycle as a yogi. Okay, so good questions. It just makes everybody think. Thank you, Dr. Chandra. Yes, Jyoti.
Jyoti Desai.
Yeah, hello, namaste.
Hello. Namaste.
You know, when we start doing the meditation and we are meditating on an object. Oh, so today's meditation is done. Next day, when we are meditating, can we change the object? No.
Try not to.
No, try not to.
Try not to, because if you keep on changing the object, it's almost like if you want to dig a hole to find something in the ground, it could be some gold or it could be oil. If you keep changing the place every day, you won't be able to dig deeper enough.
Okay.
Okay. So don't change I would say initially, even the time and the place is very important.
Okay.
Okay. Don't change the place either in your house. There should be a meditation room and a seat or a place or a corner. Object has to be the same too.
Okay.
Okay. So that's what my recommendation is.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
Nope. I think
No question?
good. I think we are good.
Okay. All right. So we can, we still have 10 minutes. I'm not going to let you go. You think I'll let you go before 2 o'clock? So
one last question.
sure, that's fine.
There you go.
You mentioned about gambling. You know, I am a retiree, my pension plan, they invest money, and the investment company sends some money. Is it considered as a gambling?
Okay. No, you are investing.
No,
You have given somebody else a charge.
Yes.
With your money, so that it can be a source of your money for the rest of your life.
Yes.
So To me, I think just let them do it. Best thing is let them do it rather than you keep on doing it yourself.
Thank you.
Because if you do it yourself, then your mind is absorbed in there. You are not doing what you are supposed to do in this stage in life.
Yes, I agree.
Somebody for living in their third stage in life or second stage in life doing it, let them do it.
Okay.
But you don't want to become financially dependent on somebody. So you are using your saving so that you can have something back to sustain your life. That's it.
Yes.
Just remember that only. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Do not look at your portfolio on a regular basis.
Yes.
Some people, they just check it several times a day. That's a disease.
Yes.
Because it becomes attachment.
Exactly. I
See,
agree.
we have our rishis, they have given us a beautiful map for this life. What to do in the first stage, what is to do in the second stage, what third stage and fourth stage.
Yes.
So in the third stage, the retirement stage, we are supposed to learn to detach from all this. And when we reach the fourth stage, completely detached.
Yes.
Okay, so then we can really expect, if we are doing all this properly, we can really expect, if not moksha, at least upward movement.
Yes. Yes.
We don't want to come back as a human being at a lower strata.
Exactly.
We want to make sure if we come back, we want to come back in a yogi's house, near some rishis. So our practice excels further. Okay, so it's
Thank
not a
you.
gambling.
Very good. Very
Yes.
good.
Okay,
Thank you.
that's how I understand. We got to definitely, I mean, we got to be practical about it, pay our own bills, not become dependent, but not obsessed about the money.
Exactly. Okay.
Obsession is the one which really creates problems for us.
Yes. Yes.
Right? So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Absolutely is the one. And
Yeah,
great.
anybody else? These are great questions, very practical questions. I'm sure other people are getting benefit from these questions too. So, but try to understand what this avidya is, the ignorance or lack of understanding, because sometimes we don't like the word ignorance. This ignorance is about yourself. This is not being ignorant about the computers or your field of work. No, you know plenty about that, but ignorance about who you are, your identity, that we got to know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, so to me, I think Rishi Patanjali, he has done such a good job. I don't know whether I'm explaining it completely or not, but I think it's a beautiful scripture which really opens up our whole like a dimensions of what sadhana we need to do. Okay, so number 5 we did. So let's look at, if you don't have any other question, we'll do just one more and then we'll stop. Because over here in the next verse is talking about asmita. So do you remember all 5 kleshas now? Avidya, asmita, rag, dvesh, abhinivesh. These are the 5 kleshas. Okay, so we learned, we got the definition of avidya, now the definition of asmita. Drig darshan shaktor ekatma ev asmita. Drig means the seer. Seer means the soul, which is also called Purush, Drig. Darshan means the seeing, the nature, the Prakriti. Okay, so Drig Darshan. Shaktor. Shakti. Shakti means power, like an inherent capacity in anything. Ek Atmat Ev. Ek means one, Atmata means self, Ev means like. So that means dissolution of one into another. That really means that we are the seer, but we dissolved into the seeing. So the separateness is not there. Asmita, I amness, self-image or self-identity. So asmita, normally it's called false identity. That's asmita, distorted self-image. So asmita emerges when the perceiver's power dissolves into the power of perception. Okay, so you lost sight of who you are. So remember, this asmita is the extension of avidya. If there was no ignorance about who you are, there won't be any asmita. You will know clearly who you are. So lack of self-understanding takes away our basic point of reference. So these two are separate, but it got dissolved. So it's like intuitively we know who we are, but we have forgotten that. That's asmita. So it's like we exist, but we do not know in what sense we exist. We think we exist because we are breathing. We think we are existing because our brain is working or our heart is working. So our core being is eternal and intelligent. But the ignorance or the avidya is just the opposite of that. This avidya, that's where the whole story started. And that's what the birth of the asmita is, I amness. So asmita is also known as ego. Ego. So both, it's like a vidya and avidya, purush and prakriti. These are the terms we'll see that Rishi Patanjali going to be using. The two are so intermingled that neither consciousness knows that the veil illuminated by its avidya, nor avidya knows that the light illuminating it is consciousness. This is a forgotten identity. So each is equally confused about the other. The confused self-awareness is asmita. So it's like line. There's a clear line, but the line has become blurred. Line between the seer and the seen. There should be a clear, crisp line. Who is seeing what? I am seeing. Sometimes we think our eyes are seeing. What is making the eyes see? That is the seer. Eyes are just the instrument. So this identification is asmita. Remember, the stronger the avidya, the more blind the asmita. Okay? So that means the less we know ourselves, the more we'll identify with the non-self. Higher the ego, that means more the ignorance. So the blinder the asmita, the more insecure it is too. Insecurity comes. You will see that a person, very arrogant person, is very insecure too. Asmita is a deep-rooted affliction and the fundamental source of misery also. If you want to see where our misery is coming from, it is a lack of right identification. That's where the misery is coming from. So Patanjali calls asmita a force field. This field is made up of two distinct forces. And that's what I was telling you earlier. It's like a blending between these forces, Purush and the Prakriti. Purush is the soul, Prakriti is the nature. So one energy is coming from the soul, the energy is coming from the Prakriti. They just blend together and clarity is not there. So there's an interplay of these two forces. That's why he defined it over here beautifully. He said, Yog Darshan Shakti. There's a Shakti in both of them. There's a power in the nature also and power in the Purusha also, the Atma also, the soul also, but they just got mixed together. So we identify ourselves with our image, and we just lock ourselves into the walls. We are seeking the freedom, but we are cut off from both sides. The guiding force of the Purush and the nourishing force of the Prakriti. And we just keep on creating higher and higher and higher walls, and we feel miserable. This is a complex anatomy of Asmita. So what I would like you to do, so we're going to end it here. So keep on going back. It's good to go back and see. And some words, if they are not clear to you, call me. It's okay to call me. Okay? So don't wait until next retreat. Call me in between if you need to. But you need to do your homework too. Okay? So today we talked about quite a bit of deep knowledge over here. So if you are feeling overwhelmed, I'm sure quite a few of you are. So it's okay. Just go back, study, open it up, and see whether it makes sense or not. But there were some practical parts also which you can practice, like a Kriya Yoga. Okay. So thank you very much. So we'll let you know whenever next retreat will be. I'm going to